everyone, I'm Deb and this is DB Design and Sewing Australia. I've had a few requests asking me how I actually insert my zips, and that's just my personal way of doing it. So the following is a video showing you how I insert the zips myself. It's probably a combination of a few different ways from a few different probably patterns and YouTube videos and going to fashion design school, and this is my preferred way to get a really good finish on a zip. I've had more viewers asking me how I do my fly because I don't do it necessarily the way the pattern shows you. So I've got the Jude Jeans here and I'll just show you, take you through the process that I use. So let's test my photography skills. Here we've got the two fronts. Now this is my left front, so if I hold it up against myself, it's my left, so I know this comes with the fly piece already on it, so that's going to get folded. And this piece also comes with the fly piece on it, and I've interfaced it, but I don't want that piece on it. So I should stop saying so, shouldn't I? Then I've drawn a line. So I am going to cut this off. As horrendously scary as that is, I'm going to cut that off. Now, we don't need that piece. So now what I want to do is I want to overlock or zigzag if you don't have an overlocker, this entire section, which is going to be my right front. I held it up against myself, and I want to overlock, put it this way, it's easier to see, this section here all the way down right into where all the crotch parts meet. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to overlock it. So now that's overlocked. Here's your nice, I'll probably see better from this. I left the interfacing on, that doesn't matter. This is going to be my right front. So it's just a piece just overlocked down. And this is my left front. Now this is overlocked all the way down, and just a hint from when you're doing overlocking on a piece that has a curve or notches or anything else in it, depending which way your curve goes, in the case of jeans, I always start from the top because it's easier to make that curve transition here. We don't want to cut into anything. So now we've got that made up, let's get on to the next part. I've also made up the fly shield. Now this is a piece that you fold in half. So to start with, you fold right sides together. You sew the little seam down here, clip off that corner, turn it out the right way and overlock here. The top stays raw. So we've got all our pieces and we've got our zip. So now what we're going to do is snip into our dot, and you can see, what you can't see, I have marked my dot there, and that was with chalk. That is not heat erasable. So I'm just snipping in there because I want to fold this back and top stitch it. So now I've got a good press. I'm going to top stitch this, which is our fly facing. So now that top stitching's done, and I just tied a knot at the top and the bottom, the next thing we're going to do is pop our zip on. Now our zip is going, I hope you can see in this, face down. So there's the zipper pull, which is what is on the, how you zip and unzip your jeans. That is going downwards on your jeans. So what we're going to do is sew the outside of the zipper tape. We're lining it up just about with this. I leave, what would that be? 3 millimeters space between the edge of the tape here and the fly where I've top stitched it. But what we're going to be doing, make sure you give yourself plenty of room, is we're going to be attaching the fly, but only to this fly flap. We're not stitching it all the way through. And it's the outside that we're stitching. This is the time you need to make sure your fly is really, really straight. We're going to stitch the zip on in this part here. I'm going to do a double pass because that's just me. That's what I like to do. I like to do a double pass. And I can already see when I go to sew my top stitching, it's going to clear that because I'm going to sew it down to there. So that's all going to be good. I'm just going to go and do a double pass using a zipper foot. And of course, when I get part of the way down, then I will be unzipping the zip. So I'll do that and then be back. So here is our zip sewn in, and I did do a double pass. You can probably see that just there. So there's 2 rows, one on the outer and one in much closer to the zip. Now the main thing we've got to do is make sure we haven't sewn it too close to the zip and that it's going to glide up and down perfectly. So we can see that that's already doing that. Now we're going to top stitch. Now I found it. This is our template for the fly, and I'm going to compare that with the other template I've got that I usually use. Remember last time I made it out of card? So just going to overlay it pretty much the same. Pretty much exactly the same. Look at that. Obviously this one's longer because the jeans are a high rise. Yeah, you'd have to say that is pretty identical. So I know, and not using this chalk pen, but using this chalk pen, and also, I don't think I've used this pen on this denim yet. So, just going to test. Whoops. And make sure that iron's off. And yes, it does. So we know that it's safe to use that pen. Easier for me to trace around with my cardboard template. So now we've got our little drawing. Now what we do need to do is, don't need that yet, I'm going to top stitch, And that is only just going to grab hold of there. And so when you look at a top stitching template, I always do the template is the outside, and then the next line of stitching will go inside. So also what I do is I turn up, is it? This is the zip. So when you think about it, the zip's going to be like that. This side of the zip is going to stay on this side of the jeans, and this side of the zip is going to go onto the right hand side of the jeans. So what we need to do is make sure this little leg of the zip does not get caught up in the top stitching. So I want to fold it up, and I don't want to pin it, so I actually just put a few tacking stitches in it. Oh, I've got some needles that have already got thread on them. Because once this is done, we're just going to pull this out. So it's just a matter of popping a couple of tacking stitches in just to keep that out the way. And I find it much more successful than pins. Pins get in the way because they've got a head and all that sort of stuff, and you don't want to be running over the heads of your pins with your sewing machine or with your tops when you're doing your top stitching. So that will just keep that out the way. And now I'm going to top stitch this into place and pop a couple of pins in it. And because it'll be easier to see, because of course I've got coloured top stitching thread, but my underneath thread is navy blue. So we can sew on this leg of the zip, because that's staying on this side. I hope that makes sense. So you can see that it doesn't catch the actual zipper, it's only catching your fly return, so, or your fly piece, which is not a separate piece in this pattern. So that's why I like to do a double pass, because that's what's holding my fly in. That double pass of the zip is holding my fly in. The top stitching is not holding the actual zipper in. It's only holding this fly extension. That's what we'll call it from now on. The fly extension closed. So I'm going to top stitch that now, and then I'll come back to you. So now we've finished the top stitching, I'm going to press off disappearing chalk. Still making sure that our zipper works perfectly. There's a little bit of tacking that I can now take out to ensure that that did not get caught in the top stitching, because with your top stitching, you can stop and start if something goes wrong, but you need to be very, very careful about your placement of your needle. once you're restarting on it. You need to leave long tails so you can tie it all at the back. So if something goes wrong, you can take it partially out. There's our zipper. So now we're going to attach the fly shield. So the next thing to do is install the fly shield. Now we're still working on the left-hand side of the pants, and here is the fly shield. This is where I have sewn a narrow seam along there, turned it out the right way and overlocked the edge. So because when we're thinking about our fly, here it is here. This is going to be attached to the right-hand side of the pants, and we need our fly shield to be on this part of the pants. So to do that, we are lying our pants down flat, and we are attaching the shield to the zipper. So when you're thinking about attaching the shield, you really want to line up the edge of your zipper with practically the edge of your fly shield. Now this is another part where it's really a good idea to have it sitting flat and to think about what you're doing. So the fly shield's not going to be attached to our left-hand front, which is our crossover part. It's going to be attached to the other side of the zip. Now we'll need to sew this with a zipper foot. And I will only be doing one pass because once we look at this side of the jeans, we're going to be folding that over and stitching that on. So the zip will in fact be held twice because of how the second piece goes on. So this is the fly shield. It's not attached to anything else. It's just attached to the zip, the side of the zip that is not so we can see once we attach this to the jeans, the fly shield will stay with that side. Now it's a really good idea to sew the fly shield in with a zipper foot. It means that you can get in a little bit closer than if you were using a normal foot. You could sew it out here, but I prefer to sew it in close, but not too close to the zip. So I'll sew that in now and then I'll be back. So now the zipper shield is sewn in place, and remembering the zipper shield is only sewn to that right hand side of the zip. This is the zipper shield. It will get held down later when we do some bar tacking and that sort of thing, or you can always go in and stitch it here, which would be the ends of your zips, the end of your zipper attached to the bottom there, but we won't do that yet. So now that you've got that in place, we are going to clip into and attach this interfacing is not staying on very well, so I might just take it Now I put that interfacing on when I was going to follow the instructions and then decided, nah, I'm not following the instructions. So now we're involving the right hand side of the jeans. I have got my dot mark there. See, it's pink. And I'm going to clip into that dot. So that we can turn this section over and press it so we can attach it to the zip. So, just thinking of the best way of showing you. Here's our zip here. Here's our piece we want to attach. So now we've got that pinned in place. Going to use a zipper foot and I'm going to sew that fly in. We can see already that our fly is going to be really good and really tucked away even when it's under stress. You can see how far in it is from the fly extension. So this is why this is my preferred way of doing it. So now I'm going to use a zipper foot and I'm going to sew in this fly. Now a lot of people have you sew this in using top stitching thread, but I'm not. I'm just sewing it with normal thread on my normal sewing machine because in my mind that can't be seen anyway. So when we look at it like that, top stitching close to where that edge is meeting, you're not going to be able to see that top stitching anyway. So I'm going to sew that fly in. So that's our fly sewn in. Give it a little bit of a press. And you can see this is a really good hidden fly. Doesn't poke out past the edge, even when, because these are stretch pants, stretch denim. So even when they're under duress, you're not going to be able to see that fly. So the last thing we've got to do now is sew up the crotch seam. So you can see that the crotch seam has been left open this whole time. And that's why even if you don't have an overlocker, you really need to overcast, stitch it, or zigzag it, because it will start to fray. Even stretch denim starts to fray. So now what we've got to do is I pressed under the seam allowance on my left hand side, which is my basically my crossing over side. And I'm going to attach it because this is all going to be top stitched. So I'm overlaying it. And what I do like to get, of course, is my hand, because it's a curve. So I always find it easier when I'm doing curves to use my ham. So I am just pinning this crotch in place. and then I'm going to tack it in place. So you can see once it's on the curve, that's going to be fine. And on the inside, it's going to look like this. Still haven't tacked down that, but that's okay. So, because this is a curve, I will often, and because it's stretch denim, so when you're using 100% cotton denim that's got, you know, no lycra in it, because it doesn't stretch at all, I may not tack it down, because when you press 100% cotton denim, it basically stays in place really, really well. Well, the stretch denim can have a tendency to try and do its own thing, really. So I'm just going to hand tack that in place. So I'll just tie off a little knot in the back, and they'll be ready to go. So this is now all ready to top stitch, and where you're going to top stitch this is going to start at the bottom, close to the seam edge, stitch all the way up, stitch over this to the second row of the fly stitch top stitching, stitch the little 2 stitches in, which is the distance I've been using on the top stitching, and then sew down the other side, and then our crutch will be sewn up. So there is the crutch sewn up. I do have to pull out those. I think I should have done this in hot pink so I could see it. So as you can see, if you're going to sew a fly, just think about it the same way you would sew in a zip. So it's got a few different parts to it. You know where each part is supposed to be. And to be honest, how you get there doesn't really matter. Okay, got that tacking out, which is why it needs to be a different colour, because you can imagine you would not be able to see it. So there's the crotch of our jeans, the zip. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is, with this fly shield, I actually want to catch it onto the other side of the fly. So when we open it and we unzip our jeans, you can see that this fly shield is not attached to the other side of the fly yet. So to do that, on the inside, with everything beautifully smooth, beautifully flat, find a pin, and I'm just going to machine that. Just machine that there, and that will hold it there. Then I'm going to do some bar tacking, which will also hold that in place. So now the fly is completed. We've got the bar tacking in place here and here. And the bar tacking also catches that fly shield. So now when we unzip the pants, we can see that that fly shield is attached in the bottom section to the other side of the jeans. So very, very happy with that. Looks like a long fly for me, but we'll see how these jeans go. But that's how easy it is to put in a fly. That's my preferred way, my half made up way. I don't know, I've made lots of pants with lots of flies in them, and so I really like it when the fly is set a long way back. So when you look at these, it's real. That's going to have a waistband on it, remember? When you do that, you're not going to be able to see the fly. So now some jeans you get are very, very close and you can sort of start to see the teeth. This is not going to happen with this pair. That's why it's my preferred way of doing it. And I think it's really easy to sew the crotch seam very, very last. Now, if you had not put a fly in something before and you wanted to do a bit of a test run, you can do a skirt. So if you do a denim skirt that doesn't have the curved thing in, I know some have the curved thing in, but ones that are straight, you're basically just sewing the fly in the way I did, and instead of this part being curved, you are sewing a straight seam down the front. So it's a really easy way to start with it, because I think having the two pieces separate for as long as possible is the best way of doing it. And it really teaches you something about the construction of the fly, how if we're doing it left over right, which is technically the men's way, but also the jeans way and my preferred way of pants, I must say, probably because I'm right-handed. So this is quite a deep fly shield. Some are only about this wide, but that's fine. That just sits against like your tummy or your undies. All the way through, make sure you can zip that fly up and down and that you haven't got it caught in anything or that you haven't stitched too close to the actual fly. But that's how you do a fly. Please let me know if you don't understand. I have been thinking that I should do one in calico with a coloured zip and coloured threads so that you can see it easily. Let me know if you would like a step-by-step on how to do the fly this way, and I can make it in calico, and I can use just, because it doesn't matter which style zip you use. This just happens to be denim, so I'm using a denim zip. But I do use like what would traditionally be called a dress zip or a skirt zip in other sorts of pants, especially if they're not tight. But this is my preferred way of doing the fly. If you'd like to see me do this in calico with a coloured zip and using all different coloured threads, please let me know, because I'm happy to do it. I know that that can be the daunting thing about making pants and about making jeans, and a few people have said I've only ever made pants with elastic in the waist because I'm way too scared to do a fly. But once you've done one or two, you'll be wondering why you never did them. So please let me know if that's something you're interested in. Everyone have a great week. Bye.